What if everything you see around you, your home, the city, even you, is just a glitch and a universal projection? Science calls it quantum entanglement. Ancient sages called it Maya. Today, we're decoding the warning they left behind. So welcome to this explainer, where we're going to visually unpack what is honestly one of the most absolute profound mysteries of our entire existence.
I mean, it's the ultimate question, right? Is this world actually real, or is it just an incredibly persistent dream? For centuries, philosophers have been completely obsessed with this. But what we're exploring today is kind of like a grand cosmic detective story. Imagine you've got two totally different teams of explorers. On one side, modern quantum physicists. On the other, ancient Indian sages. They started their journeys thousands of years apart, from entirely different cultures, literally on opposite sides of the planet. And yet, somehow, they've ended up meeting at the exact same unexpected peak.
Part 1. The illusion of reality. Breaking the clockwork. Okay, so let's dive into this. For hundreds of years, our understanding of the universe was, well, incredibly comforting. We completely trusted this classical Newtonian view of physics. You know, the idea of a giant, predictable clockwork mechanism where everything was objective, solid, and had a definite, measurable place, totally independent of whether anyone was actually looking at it. But that comforting, predictable view, it clashed violently with the shocking discoveries of the early 1900s. Quantum experiments came along and revealed that stability was the real illusion. At the tiniest scales, matter isn't stable or solid at all. Instead of that clockwork certainty, science found this totally probabilistic universe governed by bizarre rules, like wave-particle duality.
Part 2. Unlocking the quantum mystery, the double slit.
Now, the experiment that truly shattered our illusion of a stable, independent reality is absolutely mind-bending. It's called the double slit experiment, and it literally pushed science right to the edge of philosophy. It showed us that reality at its most fundamental level behaves in ways that seem entirely impossible to our everyday logic. The absolute crucial takeaway here is wave-particle duality. Basically, the fundamental building blocks of our universe, like electrons, don't just exist in one definite state. When we aren't looking at them, they exist as a formless wave of pure potential, everywhere and nowhere all at once. It is only the very act of observation that forces this wave of potential to collapse into a definite fixed particle in a specific location. Wild, right?
Now, you might think the quantum realm is just some abstract math, but let's ground this ethereal science into your daily life. Atomic clocks, which completely rely on the quantum transitions of atoms, beat over 9 billion times a second. That precise quantum ticking is exactly what allows your phone's GPS to triangulate your location. So the weird quantum world isn't just a fun theory, it literally governs our daily functional reality.
Part 3. The ancient Vedantic cipher, journey to the past.
Let's flip the coin for a second and transition the narrative thousands of years into the past. Long before quantum mechanics was even a blip on the radar, ancient Indian sages were systematically decoding reality through the Sanskrit texts of Advaita Vedanta. The philosopher Adi Shankara mapped out a framework that, honestly, sounds shockingly like a modern physics lecture. He encapsulated this with the concept of Jagat Mithya. Now, this doesn't mean the world doesn't exist like some dream that just vanishes when you pinch yourself. It means the world functionally appears undeniably real, but fundamentally it is not the absolute truth. Think of it like a movie screen. The struggles, the emotions of the characters, they feel 100% real to you as you watch, but fundamentally, the whole shebang is just light superimposed on a flat screen.
Let me walk you through Shankara's most famous analogy to make this crystal clear. Imagine you're walking outside in the twilight, and suddenly you spot a coiled shape on the ground. Immediately, your mind mistakes it for a snake. Your heart starts pounding, your fear is an absolutely real physiological reaction. But the thing is, the snake was never actually there. Once you bring a light, representing the light of knowledge, the illusion vanishes, revealing it was literally just a rope the whole time. Your false perception created a completely, functionally real experience out of nothing.
Part 4. The seer and the seen. Who is watching?
This brings us right back to our meeting point with the quantum observer effect. If a scientist needs to observe a wave to collapse it into a physical particle, Vedanta asks a much deeper philosophical question: who or what is actually doing the observing? Vedanta calls this exact inquiry Drigdrishya Viveka, which is discriminating between the seer and the seen. The incredible realization here is that the true observer isn't your physical eyes or even your brain. Why? Because the brain and the eyes can be observed. Therefore, they are just biological instruments that belong to the seen world. The ultimate seer is the silent, changeless consciousness sitting behind it all. And this brilliantly illustrates where modern science hits a massive, impenetrable wall. It's known as the hard problem of consciousness. See, science can map out brain molecules perfectly, but it is completely stumped by how physical matter actually generates subjective, first-person experience. Some scientists relied on what's called promissory materialism, basically claiming, hey, just give us enough time, we'll figure it out. But get this, a famous 25-year bet between top neuroscientists on finding the actual neural basis of consciousness just recently ended in total failure. They literally had to admit they cannot reduce the mind down to just matter.
Part 5. The illusion of separation. Spooky action. As both of our exploration teams push further into this mystery, they systematically demolish another massive illusion of our daily lives, the physical illusion of distance, space, and separation altogether. In physics, this is known as quantum entanglement. Einstein famously, and kind of hilariously, called it spooky action at a distance. Here's how it works. If you take two entangled particles and separate them by the entire width of the universe, measuring one instantly affects the other. Faster than the speed of light. It completely breaks our everyday understanding of space. It scientifically proves that at a fundamental level, there is no such thing as isolated, separate objects.
Astonishingly, this quantum entanglement acts as the exact, real-world mathematical proof for the ancient Vedanta cry, Sarvam Kavidam Brahma, which translates to, all this is indeed Brahman. Both of these frameworks, one scientific, one spiritual, insist that the entire universe is just one single, interconnected energy. Our everyday perception of separate objects, you, me, the stars, the trees out your window, that separation is actually the primary illusion.
So let's see how this all builds together. We can literally map the vocabulary of cutting-edge science directly onto ancient Vedanta. It's a perfect match. The scientific concept of a field of pure potential? That's the formless Brahman. The observer effect in quantum mechanics? That's the exact discrimination of Drigdrish of Viveka. And that final collapse into a definite particle is exactly what Vedanta calls the mind superimposing nama rupa, meaning name and form, to essentially carve up a seamless reality into the manifest world we see around us.
Part 6. Co-creators of the universe. The ultimate peak.
We have finally brought our two teams of explorers, the quantum physicists and the ancient sages, to their grand convergence at the summit of this cosmic mystery. And what they reveal up here changes absolutely everything about how we live our lives. Here is the unseen reality they both agree on. Science has completely shattered deterministic reality. In fact, laboratory experiments have shown that observation can even determine quantum outcomes retrospectively. Like literally, counters tracking random numbers will shift based on a later observer's intent. Just like the sages have been saying, things are essentially dead in themselves until we, the ultimate observers, breathe life into them. It is one single existence appearing as many forms entirely through the lens of our perception.
The renowned physicist John Wheeler profoundly realized this, calling ours a participatory universe. We are not just mere bystanders watching a mechanical clock tick away. Through the very act of our perception, we are active co-creators. The universe literally requires our observation to solidify reality out of pure potential. Which leaves us with a totally reality-bending thought to take away from this explainer: the observer and the observed. They aren't two different things, they collapse into one. So if your very act of observation is what collapses the wave of potential into a solid physical particle of reality, what exactly are you creating right now with the simple, powerful act of looking?